recording. And we're going to get started here in half a second. I'll introduce, I'm Stephen Oliver. This is Mindi Godfrey. And Mindi, I think we're going to be joined by both Jeff Smith and Greg Moody and maybe some others. I had a whole bunch of stuff put together as usual, about 5 hours worth of material for today. And since we have 45 minutes, I don't think we're going to cover all of it. But as we are waiting for those folks to join us, let me see if I can manage to share my screen. And I found this
Keep this short, okay?
video clip entertaining, but it seems oops. Let's see.
And Stephen, we've got Greg in as an attendee if you want to promote him to panelist.
We'll let him in. Yep. Oh, here we go. Okay. I believe that he is promoted to panelist. And let me share my screen. I've got this. This pretty much encapsulates my current view of this industry, although I don't mean it to be as critical as it may seem. Did that work, Mindi? My little video?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to here.
Let's open the necessary 40 accounts first. I'm going to keep this short, okay? You passed your sevens over a month ago. Seth's the only one that's opened the necessary 40 accounts for his team leader. So get on the phones. It's time to get to work. Get off your move around. Motion creates emotion. I remember one time I had this guy call me up. Wanted to pitch me, right? Wanted to sell me stock. So I let him. I got every rebuttal out of this guy. Kept him on the phone for an hour and a half. Towards the end, I started asking him buying questions. Like, what's the firm minimum? That's a buying question. Right there, that guy's got to take me down. It's not like I asked him, what's your 800 number? I was giving him a run, and he blew it. You have to be closing all the time. And be aggressive. Learn how to push. Talk to him. Ask him questions. Ask him rhetorical questions. Doesn't matter. Anything. Just get a yes out of him. If you're drowning and I throw you a life jacket, would you grab it? Yes. Good. Pick up 200 shares. I won't let you down. If you can't learn how to close, you better start thinking about another career. And have your rebuttals ready. Guy says, call me tomorrow. Somebody tells you that they got money problems about buying 200 shares, is lying to you. And there is no such thing as a no-sale call. A sale is made on every call you make. Either you sell the client some stock, or he sells you on a reason he can't. Either way, a sale is made. The only question is, who's going to close, you or him? Now be relentless. That's it, I'm done.
That's awesome.
Well, that you know, back before Ben Affleck was famous, and if anybody doesn't know, that was the first Wolf of Wall Street movie. That was based upon Stratton Oakmont, although it never said it was based on Stratton Oakmont. But welcome, Dr. Moody, Greg, and as we get started here, the thing that I find just shocking about this industry is how bad almost all the companies are at marketing, at advertising. How, you know, a big company with 7,000 advisors just have no clue how to feed their advisors traffic, and you know, and that scene gives it seems like sophisticated in the industry has gone from, you know, make 200 outbound cold calls a day, which in the age of do not call and mobile numbers is increasingly hard. Two, it's gone to you know, let's cold contact on LinkedIn, and you know, we at the beginning point are way more focused on direct response marketing than we are on let's just go. You know, if you're gonna cold contact, hell, you might as well take a right out of your office door and, you know, go to the gated community on the golf course and start knocking on doors. And by the way, that works. It's not that it doesn't work. Most people are too lazy to do it, but it certainly does work. It's just that there's usually much better ways to go. And I'm jumping right in here, Greg, but let me share something else that I had prepared, and what I thought we could do, and we'll get back to introducing ourselves and our background and stuff. Talk a little bit about advertising and direct response advertising, and in a broader sense, what marketing is. And here's yet another example, and this is one of those. How clueless do you have to be? And before I show this ad, I just looked it up, and according to Google, which of course Google knows everything, Google Google says a full color page in the Wall Street Journal is going currently for $210,000 on a national edition. So you know, rounding error off of $250,000. So let's say you got a hell of a deal and you only paid $160,000 for it. Greg, if you were going to pay $160,000 for this ad I'm getting ready to show you, if I can figure out how to share my damn screen again. Where the hell did that go? Let's see. There we go. I found it. Share screen. Let's see if I get the right one. Okay. Here we go. Tell me what you think, Greg, after 20 plus years of direct response marketing advertising, of this advertisement.
What are they trying to advertise?
Well, let's start by giving them credit. This was Monday in the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was called the personal finance section. So it had a separate section on investing and personal finance and so forth. A good place to be, right? Because presumably the Wall Street Journal has a very upscale demographic, and add to that the section itself was based upon personal finance. And so Schwab, after being contacted by the ad rep, bought a full-page ad in that section. And I'd like to see the cluster of morons who put this ad together. So let's start with, advertising rule number one is, I like to quote John E. Kennedy, who was a famous direct response copywriter many years ago. But his line was, quoted many times by our friend and associate Dan Kennedy, is, you get inside the conversation already going on in their mind, right? I've heard Dan say it this way, is you want them to, when they see your ad, that they feel like you were a fly on the wall when, after the kids went to bed, they're sitting at the kitchen table having the heartfelt conversation, in this case about their finances and whether they'll ever be able to retire, or what they're going to do to manage and protect their assets, whatever it might be. So when you do an ad, you want to either call out to the person you're advertising to, or the way I prefer to think about it is you want to get inside the conversation already going on in their mind, so that when they see the headline and then they see the body copy of the ad, it feels to them like, and I think I'm paraphrasing Dan Kennedy when I say this, is it feels like you were overhearing the conversation that they had last night around the kitchen table, and it immediately calls out to them, right? So let me ask you, how many people who are perhaps approaching retirement age, or they have $3 million in assets available, how many of them are thinking about, oh, I wonder who has a fiduciary? Greg, do you think they're sitting there saying, our biggest concern is we need to find a fiduciary?
Well, and I think for a large number of people, even ones with a lot of money, they may not even know what a fiduciary is. They don't know that's not at all a key point in their life.
Yeah. The body copy here is, as an independent financial advisor, I promise the goals I care about are yours. I promise to put the financial well-being of you and your family first. Yeah, that's not bad, and then they, and by the way, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall with them deciding the picture. So if you go to the QR code, the landing page, there's a female brunette on the landing page who also is identified as an independent financial advisor, and who also doesn't have a full name, city, name of the firm that they work with, or anything else. In this case, we're told Wendy H. is an independent financial advisor you know what I mean, if she's one of your advisors, why not use her name, what city she's in, what she specializes in? Why not make it real if you're trying to make it personal?
Yeah,
And
this legitimately makes it look like she's a fake.
yeah, yeah, and again, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall on this one. Well, we should put a model in it. Okay, well, no, we want to use somebody who's really an advisor. Well, do we really want to get one of our advisors to come in, because then everybody's going to be upset that they were in the ad? Well, yeah, let's get somebody. We just won't tell them who it really is, right? And then, well, she can't look like a model. You know, we don't want her to look like a swimsuit model, but we want it to look like she's real, but we want to have a blonde, a blonde female in the ad. I can't imagine how this conversation went, right? You probably had half the room going, "Oh no, she should be, black." Well, okay, but 95% of our clients are white. We want her to be white. Just the ad conversation going on in the background had to be hysterical. And by the way, all that happens when you scan the QR code is it takes you to a place where you can enter your zip code, and now it gives you a listing of advisors, right? So, again, some further analysis here, Greg. If we're spending a full color ad, full page in the Wall Street Journal, $210,000 according to Google, probably didn't pay that much. Maybe they did. I don't know. Is there anything about that ad that screams out to you, whoever put that together is a brilliant marketing mind?
Yeah, not at all. And what it seems like to me is that somebody was a graphics designer and did it.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty, right? You
Well,
probably
it's not even that pretty. I just think that somebody without marketing knowledge would probably look up other ads and cobble something together and think that they're a hotshot because they use the QR code.
I'm guessing there was a Madison Avenue ad agency involved. There was a bunch of high-powered Madison Avenue ad agent types sitting in the room. With them, there was 3 securities attorneys, and there were 4 other executives, including their diversity executive, all making decisions, none of them held responsible for actually driving new clients to their advisor RIA firms, right? And in fact, when you go to the landing page, the first thing you get is almost a full-page disclaimer that you have to click through before they just give you a listing of people in the area. So let's compare that with this. This is also a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal. In this case, it was black and white, not color. So again, according to the Google, it was 160,000, not 210,000. Probably they didn't pay that. But this is Fisher, and I apologize. I cut off the bottom of the ad because the bottom of the ad had the call to action. It had the phone number, website address, one thing or another. But let's compare this. So we're sitting at the dining room table and have a couple million in investable assets. Maybe we have the 401k that we want to do a rollover with, and a number of other things. And we're going, how do we make sure we're not going to run out of money when we retire? Marge or John, what are we going to do? You're probably going to retire in 3 years. I'm maybe going to retire in 7 years. That's the kind of conversation that's happening right now, right? So, in this case, the headline, and I wouldn't say it's a great headline, but the first disclaimer call out is, don't even bother if you don't have $500,000 or more to respond to this ad, right? Doesn't say it that way. It says, if you have an investment portfolio of 500,000 or more, and then it calls out to people who are over $500,000. But what it means is, don't even bother clogging up our pipeline if you don't have 500,000 or more, right? And then the headline is 99 tips to make your retirement more comfortable. Well, that's now benefit laden headline, right? And it fits into the, well, we're not comfortable if we run out of money, and we want to travel more than we've traveled, and one thing or another. And then it has you're requesting a free booklet. And by the way, I have some of them printed out here, what they offer. But they're basically offering a free book that's 99 retirement tips, and then they tell you what some of the tips are: how to protect against inflation, and longevity's impact on your needs. And probably they should have, bought the caller and highlighted that one right now as we enter stagflation, Carter redux here, right? Why you need to plan on living longer than you expected, figure out retirement cash needs. Of course, they're not doing annuities, so they want to make you beware of annuities. A way to manage your taxes in retirement, how to spend less but keep your lifestyle intact, etc. Right? So, and then what it has is it has a call to action right up here, and it has a call to action at the bottom too. But it says, get it by calling this 800 number, or get it by going to fisherretirewell.com/advice. And again, what they're doing is they're doing what we would consider classic direct response advertising, which is offering you something for free, a report, a book, a webinar, whatever it might be, and they're driving you then to a website and to a phone number. Once you get to the website, they ask a bunch of qualifying questions. In fact, I'd suggest anybody on here go to fisherretirewell.com/advice and see how that compares to that idiotic call to action that Schwab paid $210,000 for, and theirs is findyourindependentadvisor.com. The only possible logic of the Schwab ad is so that they can tout to their advisors that they spent $22 million this year to help their advisors drive traffic, hoping that their advisors don't know that they got exactly 3 leads for the entire year, right? So these are both comparables. Wall Street Journal, I believe the Fisher was a separate section as well. Both are fairly recent, within the last month. Like I said, the Schwab one was this Monday. But what a contrast, right? And to give you another quick contrast, this was from Facebook. And in this case, Fisher is applying to those who are a little bit more tech savvy of click here and get an interactive tool at fisherinvestments.com that gives you the estimated amount you need, what you're going to have on track right now to be at retirement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, very spot on and very specific. And again, before you get to your free retirement GPS, you're going to fill out a lot of qualifying information and be handed off to a Fisher advisor who probably is the next one up for whatever reason. So I thought that might be a good place to start is our conversation about this industry is just how pathetic most people's knowledge base is on advertising and marketing, and really that Stratton Oakmont video is pretty apropos, right? Of let's start everybody by doing 200 cold calls a day or 1,000 cold calls a week or whatever it might be, and oops, do not call came in place, and that slowed us down a little bit, but then all of a sudden everybody's got a mobile phone, so if I'm doing outbound cold calls on mobile phones, essentially I get a 3% answer rate, right? And so, okay, well, we can't do that. And the funniest thing was the article I saw on Merrill, which is their logic for eliminating cold calls, was it had differential impact. So women and minorities didn't do as well on a cold call only environment. And really what they meant is they were hiring people who had fewer friends and fewer associates coming in, so that environment hastened their failure rate. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yeah, and I mean, the only reason that, I guess a flip way to say that was they were hiring more people. The way that people were getting leads wasn't really from cold calling. It was because they were selling their friends initially. So they were having some people with a broader initial base going in were building their business out of their base that they had. Yeah. And so their hiring practices were different.
You're trying to be politically correct. I'll be politically incorrect. The good thing about a cold calling environment is it's just like putting people in the SEAL team, training to be a Navy SEAL, right? If you put somebody on, you have to do 100 cold calls a day, and like that boiler room video, here's how many new clients you have to have in this period of time, and here's how many outbound calls you get. Well, you screen out most of the people that you put into the program, right? And the ones you get are going to be real hardcore, make the sale, do it whatever it takes to make the sale types, right? So the question is if you're an individual advisor, you're an independent advisor, or if you're captive with one of these big companies, is you need to have a whole series of marketing tools to drive traffic that don't rely on you just banging the phone and doing outbound calls and then finding out that that doesn't work as well as it used to work anymore. And so just banging metaphorically tapping people on the shoulder on LinkedIn and hoping you get responses that way. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So what I like about the fact that the industry norm was flush out 99% of the people who came in, was the ones that were left were hard chargers, high drive, high motivation, willing to do what it takes. I mean, that's a good thing. The bad thing is that an awful lot of people who would have been great, who would have maintained a big client base, a good client relationship, if just given the tools to drive traffic to their practice, either in the Fisher approach, which is corporate is driving them to you and you're getting this flood of leads that you can work with, or in an independent approach, which is here's a marketing toolkit where you can do option A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All of them work. None of them require extensive labor, and you can drive traffic in. I mean, then you're fine, right?
Yeah, and then which is what we're trying to help everybody with.
Yeah,
And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think in the olden days there, which weren't that old long ago, there were a lot of people that probably would have thrived and done really well in the profession, but were pushed out because of that process and or just barely hung on. And we really want to change that to help everybody with the right types of processes. And the ads that you showed were a good example. I hope everybody sees that, where there's still this remnant of incredibly poor basic concepts of marketing, like the Schwab ad is just, it's a billions of dollars company, and it's still not doing, just because they're a big company doesn't mean they're doing marketing correctly. Yeah. They're doing it in a way that it might be okay in certain scenarios for companies that are image oriented, like Coke or Pepsi or Nike, or that's commodity oriented. But that's not the way this type of business and your type of business, for everybody that's on the call here, need to be marketing. It's going to help drive leads to your practice. So it just won't work for the type of things that we're doing.
Yeah, and to maybe put it in current in-use marketing terms, it's the difference between spending money for branding and spending money to get direct response, right? And what our mission is always, any penny that's going out in marketing is aimed at direct response, and then also builds branding through being able to self-liquidate the advertising, right? So if I were to spend, again, let's take the Fisher at $160,000, and let's say that my average new client is going to be worth 1% a year of $1.5 million, let's make it easy, $2 million. So 1% of $2 million, and let's say my average client is with me for 20 years. Well, now I know what the lifetime value of that client is. And I also know if I'm charging, let's say, $5,000 upfront planning fee, I know how much am I going to make immediately, how much am I going to make in the first year, how much am I going to make lifetime. And then that informs me on how many new clients I need from that 160,000, back it down, how many meetings do I have to have, because we should know our closing rate. Back that down, how many appointments do I have to get to generate that many meetings? Back it down, how many people had to have opted in on the website? Back that down, how many people had to visit the website, right? So it's how many people were driven from the ad to the website or driven from the ad to 800 number. How many of those did we collect full data from? How many of those do we make appointments? And if I get from, let's say I have to receive $5,000, let's say, to justify for a new client, and I have an 80% closing rate once I meet them, but I'll make it easy. I have 50% closing rate, so now I can pay $2,500 for a face-to-face meeting, and let's say for every appointment I meet half of them, just to make it easy, I can pay $1,250 for a appointment, and now let's make it easy. Say 50% close rate from lead. All of those numbers are sloppy numbers. They should be much higher than that, right? But 50% closing rate, where was I at? $1,250. So now I'm at $625, right? And let's say that I get of the people who visit the website, 25% that fill out the form. So I was at 625, and now I can back it down to divide that by 4. I don't know what is that. What is that?
$125.
125.
Yeah.
175.
Yeah.
So I can pay $175 to get somebody to the site. So, and again, in their case, so if I pay $175 to get them, and I paid $160,000 for the ad, I need to have, a little under 1,000 responses to the ad in order to pay for the ad. Well, I bet that's completely doable, given the circulation of the Wall Street Journal and the demographics of the Wall Street Journal, right? But which one would you say is more likely to have 1,000 responses?
Well, yeah, and the problem with the Schwab ad is two problems. One is it's unlikely they're going to get many responses because it didn't ask them to really do anything.
Yeah.
The only reason you'd respond to that is if you go, wow, I've been waiting to work with Schwab for a long time, because there's no reason that it compels me to work with Schwab. It's just if you happen to somehow think that, unless being a fiduciary really, it got you really excited, which I think for the average person is not going to be anything exciting.
It's an industry buzzword and an industry legality, but I don't think the average consumer is sitting there spending much time worrying about that. It may come up in the conversation before they write a check and invest a couple $1 million, but if everything you're doing, you're a fiduciary, which an awful lot of people are, then and legally you are, then that's fine. You can explain it at that point, and if you're not, and you can explain your way around it, why you're purely commission based and why that's better for them, and one thing or another, right?
Yeah, and so there's no reason for them to really scan the QR code or go to that site unless they really wanted to in the first place, in which case they'd look you up online. So the value of that ad, the idea that they get 1,000 responses is low. And then when you scan it, all that happens is they get driven to now to play devil's advocate. I mean, I guess the guys would argue, well, yeah, but now it goes directly to an advisor rather than download a document, and then they would go to one of the Fisher advisors. But it still doesn't really, the response rate is going to be much, much lower on something that doesn't give them something. And that's I think the thing that we keep railing on with most of these, not just website type mechanisms, but all the mechanisms that investment advisors tend to use, is they try to either go directly to an appointment, or they try to the mechanism for trying to get somebody to get interested or become a lead or become a prospect is just all wrong. So it either tries to get them to marry you, they set an appointment and get started with you, or it's super weak and it's not interesting enough to take any kind of action. It seems to be the dilemma.
And maybe said differently is thinking of the prospects of the market out there, of all of the people who fit your profile. And some of them are actively looking for somebody, and some of them will stumble across this and say, well, we've been thinking about Fidelity or Schwab, but this reminds me of Schwab, and let's go track somebody down. There's going to be people who are in buying mode, who are ready to go look, and you happen to be in front of them at exactly the right time, and it's great that you're in front of them at exactly the right time, right? However, the bulk of them are thinking about, researching, trying to learn about, worrying about their need. And when you provide a tool that helps their research, helps them think about the need, then what you do is you get them many steps earlier in the process, right? And you also get them at the point where they're not debating, Fidelity or Schwab. What they're doing is they're thinking, how are we going to make sure we're okay when we're not having a steady paycheck coming in anymore? And so they're having that conversation. And so what they do is they raise their hand for, here's another one of Fisher's reports, they raise their hand for the free report. Now, some of them will get satiated with the content of the free report, but then you have them on your email list, you can follow up. You have them on your mailing list, you can follow up. You have their phone number, you can follow up. You have all kinds of sources, and you have permission to follow up by phone, right? So you get away from the do not call issues that go with it. And if you're smart, you also then get your contact information into their phone so that when you call them, it's a recognized number, and that they know, at least if they ignore it, they know that it's you calling rather than an unknown number. And we can go back through some of those things I just said. But the real issue is you want to get to them early in the game, and then not be in the mode of, I've got 5 people I'm looking at, let me decide which one I want. But I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm researching the problem, and here's somebody who's helpful that's giving me useful information about the problem. And then here's somebody who's continuing to help me with the problem and educate me with the problem. And I think a lot of advisors will say, well, I don't want to educate them because I want me to be the source of the fountain of knowledge. Well, in essence, when you're educating them, 1, you are the fountain of knowledge. And 2 is in most cases, they're going to figure out it's complicated enough that they'd rather you help them with it rather than them try to figure out what you know, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that if they think they know what they're doing, they're just going to do it themselves. So if they're going to be looking, they'd rather, the more you become the authority, the more they're going to trust you to do to manage their money for them.
Yeah, and I might say it even a little bit differently is a lot of the ones that you want, right? Might be my profile. I have a degree in international economics, and I have an MBA, and I pay attention to all this stuff. But as a CEO of a big company, I want you to handle it for me, because I don't want to spend all the time you're going to spend handling this. I want you to do it for me, and I'm willing to pay you your 1% to do it. I mean, that's the ones at the higher end of the spectrum that you really want. They know that they know enough about what's going on, and they also know that they have the ability to figure it out if they want to figure it out. However, their time's worth $1,000 an hour, $2,000 an hour, $5,000 an hour. So they'd much rather outsource it to you and outsource it to somebody that they trust, and that's an important component of the whole thing. So anyway, I just kind of jumped in there right away, but my picture of this industry really is that most people have a very limited toolbox of marketing tools, right? And a very limited ability to really think beyond, you have what? Let's do 100 cold calls a day. Okay, no, let's do however many LinkedIn will allow you to do nowadays. What is it, 50? Let's do 50 cold contacts and, connect with 100 people a week on LinkedIn. 2, making the leap and getting what we call the marketing Parthenon, getting a whole bunch of different feeders out there that are feeding you traffic. And something that the 3 of us were lamenting recently, it's most advisors really are, if they're successful, just pretty highly compensated salespeople, right? And they're mostly doing a lot of manual labor to get that traffic in. And the most sophisticated I see sometimes, and by the way, everybody's back at it, because I have 3 mailers that I received at my home this week for free dinner meetings, right? So obviously live meetings have come back, at least in Colorado and other semi-saints.
Mine too.
Yeah. It came back for you quicker than it came back for me, but came back in Florida like in 2 weeks, came back in Colorado in about 2 years. But still everybody's hiding under their desk in Seattle, I'm afraid. But
I think that's right.
yeah, yeah. But what what it seems like is there's just such a limited toolkit that most advisors have. They know I can do cold contacts. I can figure out what my warm market is, and they start sounding like MLM people, right? Is, who's my warm market? Who do I go pitch first in my warm market? Or they focus on things like dinner meetings. And by the way, lunch and dinner meetings work. And usually what we do with somebody who's getting it to work okay is we can make 2 or 3 tweaks and get it to work really well. But there's an awful lot of sources. If I had a choice, and the choice was,
Hi.
you need to mute, Mindy. But if I had a choice, and the choice was I'm going to go do the direct mail, Facebook advertising, LinkedIn advertising. I'm going to put people in the room. I'm going to spend $50 a head to buy them a steak or a chicken dinner, and then I'm going to pitch them. If I had a choice between doing that or a choice of somebody else rounded up 200 people, and I get to work with the 200 people they rounded up, assuming that their people in the room are a good prospect, I'd go do that all day long. Wouldn't you, Greg?
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I just want to mention, when you say to tweak those dinner meetings or tweak these types of events and make them work better, we're not talking a little bit better. The tweak is small, but the results are 10 times better in the ones that we've done. 10 times or more. It's massive, because most of the time people are doing these completely wrong. So when we talk to people and they've done these types of events or these types of things, and they say, yeah, I did that. I did, I get a little results, or they've worked moderately, or they work okay, but they're really tiring me out. Well, if you got 10 times the results or better, and we're not exaggerating on that. I mean, sometimes people think we're exaggerating, but most of the time people leave out just a couple little things that aren't any extra work, but they're just doing it wrong. They make a big difference.
Yeah. And let's talk about what some of those components might be, right? Clearly one component, and most people are smart enough to hone in on this a little bit, but one component is not fishing in the right pond. In other words, it's casting too wide a net, to keep the metaphor going, and not getting exactly the right audience, right? I would much rather, have the luncheon meeting at Morton's with C-suite executives of local tech firms about developing their financial security beyond their current career than I would to be saturate I'm in a good zip code, but saturate somebody's zip code because they happen to have the median age that I'm looking for and the average home value that I'm looking for, right? So that's one of them, is oftentimes they don't fish in the right pond. And we help them hone in as far as niching, hone in on who the right people would be in the room. And then what you and I see a lot is I put them in the room, but then I don't do a good job of converting to face-to-face meetings. I don't do a good job of converting face-to-face meetings to clients. And there's a lot of moving pieces to that. But again, I go back to most advisors are just, fairly well compensated salespeople. And the industry has a huge failure rate of people in the first 3 to 5 years because they just can't do, they can't run the business with no marketing skills. And no matter how good you are face to face, if you don't have enough qualified prospects coming in the door, it doesn't do you any good, right? But let's go backwards, Greg, on something like that for a second. Is if you have a sales system where you don't have to make every sale, you can hand it off to somebody else who makes the sale, which is, of course, the way we've lived our life is, in a situation where we were training a lot of other people to replicate what we're capable of doing. Is a sales system includes tools. We have, I don't have it easily handy, but, an introduction package. Well, I can grab one. Here we go. So like in our case, and this is the same thing you could do as an advisor, we have a box that people get sent, right? And in that box, We have, cover letter, couple books, video, a variety of other high value perception things. But a sales system to me is a collection of tools. Those can be digital and they can be physical that help facilitate the sale. So the sale is essentially 95% done before you ever, sit down and ask them to write a check, right? And then it's having a mechanism to educate and follow up with people once they raise their hand in order to move them from just research to being interested to talk to you and build that credibility. So, and I'm going through this super quickly, right? But there's a lot of components to having an effective sales system, right? But then we go back to, we were starting with something like a dinner meeting. Well, if we could 5 times or 10 times the results of something you're already doing, well, that oftentimes makes it go from I'm kind of happy with my results to I'm just I'm ecstatic.
Then you don't mind doing those dinner meetings, right?
Yeah.
Then you don't mind doing the things and spend a little bit of money on them, and then you don't mind having some different kinds of results. Or you don't mind doing them if you have different kinds of results.
Yeah. But if I could go back, go back to where we were at is, I would be better if instead of me trying to fill the room, somebody else already had a room that they were filling and I could get in front of them, right? So if I was the featured speaker or a breakout room speaker for that matter, at the National Association of Dentists, the National Association of Neurologists, if I was, someplace where there's a convention of people who are presumably in my category that I want to niche target, where somebody else has filled the room, that's going to do a much better job for me, right? And the reason I think that advisors get so hung up on things like dinner meetings is they think that their geography is, a 5-mile radius around their office. That to me, that's crazy. We have, I have, my friend David Phelps, who's in the helping dentists retire early. He's drawing from people all over North America. In fact, probably internationally at this point. You can depend upon your licensing and what your company, can do. You can certainly in the U.S. be drawing from all over the U.S. with no problems. And what we've seen is making the sale by Zoom works just as well as in person. I think most people don't think that, but they haven't done a very good job of prep the groundwork, using tools, using other preparatory means. But that's part of what we're talking about is that Parthenon is having a toolbox of a lot of different sources, but then taking things that already work okay, plus them up, but take a lot of other tools that aren't working or you probably have never heard of, and pulling the trigger on that, right? So I know, again, I have a lot of friends, the industry calls it circle of influence marketing, but usually what they mean by that is, you get a couple of CPAs who are sending you traffic. But
except they don't.
Yeah, they usually don't. There are ways to fix that too. I mean, we can talk about how to plus that up dramatically, but the more general marketing types call it host beneficiary or host parasite marketing, right? But we know a ton of people that we've worked with very closely that have leapfrogged off of other organizations. In fact, our other business is, that's kind of how we got in the advisor business, is we plugged an external wealth manager into our clients, and we were coaching them on how to get their revenue way up and how to market, and figured out they were making a ton of money, but they were buying the new sports car and traveling and not really becoming wealthy as we had promised. So we plugged a wealth manager into them, and there's any number of people who do the same thing, where you can plug into to their existing client base, and all of a sudden you have great results. What would you add to that, Greg?
Well, and I think that all these things that you've talked about is one component that we didn't mention that I think we're going to get to, is you differentiating yourself from all the other guys that are in the space, because there's so much of even the ads that we talked about, is everybody looking the same.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
even the dinner meetings, and even the way we present ourselves, and it's all I think you said it well, the J.C. Penney suit behind the oak desk, and everybody ends up
Yeah.
looking the same. And you know, I have this alphabet soup of letters after your name, and most of the time, people, you're not going to get noticed. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. And so, like the box, and you showed the box. I have it at my I have it at my desk too. You know, imagine your clients getting something like this, or maybe not. You know, ours is pretty
Yeah.
substantial and significant. But imagine them getting something like this once they filled out a form on the on your website, or once they came into your space, or imagine that they had more substantial materials to stay with you as a client. You know, one thing that we haven't touched on, and I think a lot of advisors don't really want to believe, is that 60% of people are unhappy with their current advisor.
Yeah.
And their 30% are active. So half of that 60% are looking for somebody, but they, you know, just haven't stumbled upon the right person. But yet we talk to advisors all the time, and they say, oh no, I have really great retention. They stay with me forever. A lot of times that's just by default, because people are generally lazy and they don't change. But you would be surprised at the difference. The ones that we work with, where they meet with people more than once a year. Sometimes people we've talked to don't meet with their clients at all. And meeting with people
Well, we know a few where they hide under the desk anytime there's any trauma in the market, for sure.
Yeah, when COVID happened, they're hiding under the desk. But the
Yeah.
ones that we work with that didn't hide under the desk, they're going and talking to them, and that people end up investing more and having them manage more money for them. You know, there's all kinds of other ways that you can work with your clients currently, or their family members, or their kids that might also have money to invest. So there's all kinds of things that can happen when you're actively working with people, and not being the boring J.C. Penney suit guy behind the oak desk person. Uh, People aren't that concerned about your qualifications as much as they are. I mean, they want to get good returns, and they want to get good results from the work that you do, but that you show genuine concern, that you are active and in front of them and pay attention to them. And that's what we want to make sure we help you with in the process that we follow. So that box is a good example. You mentioned the sales process, but it really transcends the whole rest of the process in your relationship with them, that makes a multiplicative difference. So imagine whatever your work you're doing now, and you could double, triple, quadruple it. And that's not made up numbers. That's not exaggerated, but your clients are probably not investing all they could with you.
Yeah.
But you're not in front of them to go through their entire plan and their entire portfolio, or their spouse's portfolio potentially, or other people, just because you're not comfortable asking. So that's what we want to help you with.
Yeah. Well, and maybe to hone on that a little bit, and we're going to run out of time before long. Like I said before, you were allowed in as a moderator. You know, I came prepared today with about 5 hours worth of material. As typical.
We always have more than we can talk about.
Yeah, yeah. But to fill that loop in a little bit, I differentiate advisors that we're working with, and in a variety of ways. But one way we do is how many clients they have already, and differentiate between, if you have critical mass, and we can talk about what that means. But if you have critical mass, you've been at this for a while, and you have quality clients, then you are probably massively under maximizing what you should be doing with them, which includes creating regular and ongoing communication systems, includes creating tools for them to be reminded, one, that you exist, but two, as passed along tools. But once you have that critical mass, and I tend to think of it as I'm around, 100 clients, although, frankly, if I had 5 people who are each worth $50 million, that's I can do a lot with that too. But once you have a mass of clients, there's all kinds of things you can do with client appreciation events, with newsletters, with ongoing communication, with creating a book, once a year or once a quarter that everybody gets 5 copies as passed along tools. Really a big practice. Somebody who's been established they should be able to do all of their growth internally, right? They don't need to be out running around doing a lot of this external marketing. However, the problem with the industry tends to be is people who aren't at that point. Well, ones who are, they're so sloppy about their communication and so confident that they're doing it well when they're not, that they miss huge amounts of opportunity within their list, right? That's all the way from not really knowing who they have and who they're working with, what the opportunities are. I talk about in my former business, if I hadn't really paid attention to who I had, it turns out I had the president of a $780 million electronics chain. And there was a lot we did to work with him. I had the president of Norwest Banks. They got gobbled up by Wells Fargo banks. I had the marketing director for the Denver Broncos organization. I had the CFO for the Denver Broncos organization. I had the marketing director for the Denver Nuggets organization, and I had the marketing director for US West, which was at the time the largest employer in the state. Well, many people might have that list of people, and all they know is this guy's a CFO and he makes this much money and he has this much assets, and doesn't think, he's the CFO of a professional sports franchise. How many executives do they have making over $100,000 a year? How many of their players have done a good job of thinking of their portfolio? I mean, how many people do we know who've in fact that show I like. What's the name of that show? Ballers. And the whole premise is The Rock plays a financial advisor as a former football player. I mean, you've got to figure out who your current clients are, and then figure out where those opportunities are. And I would say most people don't do a very good job of that, right? I had, in this case, the HR director who had 45,000 employees they were responsible for, who basically would let me do anything I wanted as long as there wasn't a conflict of interest with that list, right? So they would let me show up at all their live events, be a speaker at their events, have booths at their events. Back then, they sent out physical payroll, so I could do payroll stuffers. I could print 45,000 of something that would go along with all the payroll. They let me show up at their wellness center. I mean, any and everything that I wanted to do. It was just knowing that I had that resource. So when you look at it, there's a differentiation between, one advisor we worked with used to have a thriving practice, sold it, decided they wanted to retire, and I believe the story had some medical issues due to that, and then got healthy and wanted to come back in the industry. And by the way, the wanted to retire and deciding I didn't want to stay retired is a common thread.
Yeah, that's right.
We have several working with on that. But when you have to go build it from scratch, it's a lot different than I have critical mass. If I have 100 quality clients, there's 20 things we should be doing to communicate with those clients, to add the family members, to add their associates, to figure out who they are, to be having conversations about what opportunities there are, and to be creating referrals, both referrals one-to-many and referrals one-to-one. And hardly anybody is doing much of any of that stuff, right? Most of the referral traffic they're getting, if they have that, is they meet with them once a year and they ask who do they know. Well, that works a little bit, but it's not very productive overall.
Yeah, and being active in referrals is important. What we end up talking to a lot of people about, we say, well, how do you get your business? You go, well, I get a lot of it by referrals, almost as if they're so good that they get a lot of referrals. And what that really means, if you answer the question, if we asked it to you right now, how do you get your business? And you say you get a lot of it by referrals. What that really means, I hate to tell you, is you're very weak at your marketing, or it's non-existent. That's because that's the only leftover thing you have, is that once in a while somebody tells them somebody about you. But that doesn't mean you're really good at referrals. And unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily mean you're that great at what you're doing. It means that it may mean that, but it really isn't a measure of that. What it's a measure of is that you're not doing enough marketing. Marketing should generate some lead traffic independent of referrals, and it also should generate some more referral business than what you're getting now, because you're doing a lot of stuff to generate referrals from multiple sources. One of them your clients, but also from a more robust work through this circle of influence, and then active referral stuff, as you mentioned, one to many, meaning one person's doing some things to generate some referrals, but also events and different things we can do, we can help you with to generate a lot of referrals from your current client list.
Yeah, or the example of somebody's in a C-suite position with an organization that has a lot of people who would be good prospects. Somebody is in a role of authority in a club or in a community that would be a useful inroad for me. But I got to know that. I got to figure that out. I've got to have those feelers out and figuring out what's going on, and then I've got to turn that into productive results. And hey, we're going to run out of time in about 3 minutes. For everybody who's on here live, and Greg, Mindi, what we know is we're going to have an awful lot more people watching the recording of this than joined us live. So if you're watching the recording, or if you're live with us, I would recommend you give Mindi a call. And there's several different things from a standpoint of us formally working together that we can do. But what we're happy to do is to talk to you individually, look at your individual situation, give you 5, 6, 7 very tailored ideas to jumpstart your business. From our standpoint, really the business we're in is doing high-level coaching and consulting for high performers. So most of the advisory practices we have is on an individual level or at least at $500,000 and up. Some of them maybe $250,000 and up. And of course, way into the multi-millions. But we're happy with anybody. At the lower level, we have a program we call the Complete Fill Your Practice program. That's a good way to jumpstart if you're just getting started in the business. Mindi just put her phone number in the discussion forum here, 303-808-8759. Mindi, what I might suggest, since I've got to run to another appointment, is I'll turn you back over as moderator, and anybody who would like to talk to you right now, we can open it up and promote them to panelists, and they can talk to you right now as well. If I can get, we have to talk to Apple. Every time I move my trackpad, it turns itself off on my coaster. So, there's a design flaw, which is unusual for both of our favorite company there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great. Well, really, everybody's take advantage of what we talked about. Make sure we get some time to talk to you, and we can individually help you tailor something that can really jumpstart what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, and Mindi, you're going to now have to stop the live stream and stop the recording.
Right.
Since I did that in the wrong order.
Got it.
Yeah.
I can do that.
But again, I'm Stephen Oliver, Mindi, Godfrey, and Greg Moody, and our focus is on helping financial advisors, quadruple and multiply beyond that their business, and a great extent it's building sales systems and marketing systems to drive a consistent flow of traffic, to turn your practice into a business from a purely labor-intensive personal sales profession, right? Is what we want to do is create as much traffic as you can handle of the right kind of traffic, and then develop systems around it so that your staff can handle the business. If you want to be working from your laptop in Maui, or if you want to be in the office or not in the office, whatever you want to do to be able to run that business and run it productively. What would you add to that, Greg?
No, that's exactly right. Make sure it's working so that business is working for you, you not for them, for it, and kind of shift what you're doing to the right focus, and have it have enough stuff happening that you can be the quarterback of it, not be the kind of the slave to it.
Exactly. Well, on that note, we'll call it a day, and anybody who wants to stay and set a time to chat with us personally, Mindi will handle that. Mindi, make sure you kill the recording and the live stream before that.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we'll see everybody later.
Thank you.